everyone, and welcome to Dream Leapers. I'm your host, Harriette Cole, and I have a very special guest today, a woman I call friend, a woman I call Malcolm, as in Malcolm X, and she calls me Martin, as in Martin Luther King. We'll get into that in a minute. I had the honor of bringing her on to my team at Essence when I was running the fashion department in the early 90s. And she was an incredible force then. She then left. She'll tell us, but I'll give you a snippet. She left when Vibe magazine was started and became their first fashion director, and came back later to Essence to do a lot of work, and has just been impactful in the space of image and style and fashion and culture since the day we met. So let me just go to what we have written. Today, we're going to be having a conversation with a multifaceted woman who has made her impression in the fashion and entertainment industries and beyond as a writer, creative director, and executive producer. Now, most notably, she serves as a self-proclaimed image activist, helping to challenge and reframe how imagery, media, and normalized beauty standards impact how we view and understand one another. We are speaking with my friend, Michaela Angela Davis. Her work has reconfigured the intersections of fashion, beauty, race, and identity. From her early days at Essence Magazine to becoming the founding fashion director of Vibe, Michaela has consistently used storytelling as a tool for cultural reflection and transformation. She is the creator and executive producer of Hulu's NAACP Image Award nominated docu-series Hair Tales that explores Black identity through the lens of hair. She also co-authored the best-selling memoir, The Meaning of Mariah Carey. Yep. And just a few short months ago, Michaela published her very own memoir. It's called Tenderheaded. Did your mother say you were tenderheaded when you were little? Mine did. Tenderheaded is a reflection of her life and her own complex identity story. With her memoir and her career, Michaela does not just influence culture. She interrogates, redefines it, and elevates it, making room for more Black stories, faces, skin tones, hair types, and beauty standards to come to the surface. Michaela continues to use her voice to expand representation, and today we're going to hear all about it. So please help me welcome Michaela Angela Davis to Dream Leapers.
Hi, my friend. You are my
Hello.
friend.
I am. How are you, my
Yes.
dear?
I'm so happy to be here. We made it.
We made it. I'm so happy to be here too. So just tell folks, I saw Michaela at a book signing just when the book was coming out at our beloved Susan Taylor's home, and it was so.
Yes.
I mean, the gathering of women who are part of the tribe,
Right.
the Essence tribe, was magnificent, right?
It really was. It was a testimony, a living testimony to all the collective work that we had done and the relationships that we forged and the legacy of Essence and Susan and all of us. Like that was a
Yeah.
living legacy living room.
It was a beautiful experience, and Michaela read from her book, and I just have to tell you all the writing. It's both poetic and visual and different. Memoirs can be every kind of way, but the pacing of it is very uniquely you. You've got your staccato over here, and then you've got some winding prose over there, and it's a joy to read. I will say that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we had planned on having an interview a couple weeks later, and then we didn't.
Then we did it.
And then we didn't. And I was like, my friend isn't blowing me off. Is she? What's going on? And I was like, what is going on? So, Michaela, there was something going on. And you talk about what was happening to you a little bit in your book. But please tell us about this moment of pause that you have had at a crescendo point of your life. The book is certainly a crescendo. You're sharing this beautiful treasure with the world. And you had to step off for a minute. Why?
Yeah, well, uh, and this is the first time I'm publicly talking about it. So, unbeknownst to most of the guests at that event, in my large suede Margiela bag was a portable air concentrator, which is basically like a mini oxygen tank for my lungs. My lungs I've had interstitial lung disease, which the book ends right where I'm sort of discovering that I'm having breathing problems in the middle of
Right.
writing, in the middle of, so that's where the book sort of ends. And what I discovered when I didn't know what was going on, I got this diagnosis, and it was progressive. And by the
And what is
time
it
we
called? What is it called,
So
Michaela?
I had interstitial lung disease. And so what that is really, there's so many, it's a spectrum, but mine in particular was some scarring on both my lungs. And with scarring, there's no chance of regeneration. So the whole process was just trying to stop the spread. And it had underlying autoimmune properties. So it was based on some autoimmune deficiencies that I had and didn't know. Um, and by the time we had that book event, like I snuck out, Harry. I don't know if
I
because
know.
I was,
I saw.
and by the time I got out of, sort of eyes reach, I had to put in a cannula in my nose and get air. Like it was, I was at that point, um, even then. And
And
I
by the
had,
way,
I,
Michaela, I just want to add because I remember coming over here to you and saying, because I've done so many books and book tours, and I have asthma, so I know things to do. And I was like, oh, we use
yeah.
Fisherman's Friend, and use throat coat tea, and you were like, it's a little bit more than that, Harriet.
Yes, it was a little bit more than, and I'm a fisherman's friend. Yeah, it was a little bit more than a tin. Um, and so I only had four major talks because also my Lenny, my daughter, was annoyed with me the whole time. She's like, "You shouldn't be doing this anyway," but I know you put out this book, and then what? So my last event was in LA. It was wonderful. It was at the Reparations bookstore. I was in
Mm.
conversation with Arthur Jaffa. Like it was amazing. On the flight home, I started to, I had gotten used to this process of getting on a flight and having my breathing be very short, and then at some point it levels out, and sometimes I use my breather. And on the flight back from Los Angeles, which is maybe um, less than a month after I saw you, it would it would not it would not open. And I was checking my blood oxygen level. And if anyone knows, like your blood oxygen level right now is somewhere probably between 96 and 100. That's normal. Mine was between 46 and 50. The whole flight.
It's amazing you were conscious.
It's amazing I'm sitting here talking to you. So what? And then there's some more that I'm writing through now, like what was happening in my head. But um, right before when they announced that we were landing, I asked them to please call the EMTs, and I left that flight on a stretcher. So my last book event, I left on a stretcher and was in NYU Lango, because I knew that I had to get now into the transplant track. I just didn't know it was going to happen so quickly, and neither did the medical team. And so I convinced the ambulance to take me to NYU. I got there, and then the transplant process began. And in about 2 weeks, not even, because there's all these tests you have to take. There's a lot of things to get a transplant. It's not
Right.
just because you need it. You have there all kinds of compatibility things. Are your other organs working well? Is the rest of your body? Like it was a whole series of tests. But in less than 2 weeks, I got the lungs of a 26-year-old male. I got the call at 10 p.m. and I was in the hospital, and 2 days later, I was in surgery. So I'm speaking to you now with the lungs of a 26-year-old male giving me life.
Mm.
And this is the first real conversation that I've had, because the recovery. I'm still in recovery,
Right.
um, but I've passed that 3 month acceptance mark, because there's a
Right.
whole lot of acceptance or rejection or infection, and I've passed all that. So it's between God and modern medicine, girl.
Amazing.
It
So,
it it,
okay,
it truly is.
I got a few questions. First of all, two lungs, double lung transplant,
Yes,
right?
a bilateral. Yeah.
Bilateral. When you realized that this was happening to you, this is like a surreal thing. What,
Oh, for sure.
how, how did you come to terms with understanding that you, as a healthy human, are compromised so dramatically? And I know from not nothing as dramatic as yours, but having asthma, sometimes you can't breathe. I do
Yes.
understand the, oh my goodness, I can't breathe. But
Yes.
this is at a whole different level. What's happening to you when you realize my life is compromised?
I'm still processing, to be honest, because once I got the diagnosis, and my daughter just had a child, I just became a grandmother, and I had all these, I had this book tour and this thing and this family, and then it all became tenuous. And to be honest, Harriet, I really leaned on my spiritual practice
Mhm,
to just get me through one day at a time. Like, I really, that whole notion of living in the now and
mhm,
being present was no longer a notion. Like, it was how I lived, because I wanted to live.
mhm.
And but I will tell you, on that flight, I was not convinced I was going to make it at all, because you that's people tell you to go to the hospital if your blood oxygen is at 88, like to call 911, and I'm half of that. But I knew that I had half of my lung capacity for months. So, but I did it all, and I have been told that you can do all right. And Harriet, we come from a generation of just like thugs. We thug it out. We work to the end. We just do what we
Preach.
have to do. We carry 1,000 bags. We go up a million stairs. We do whatever it takes to get that job done. That's how I'm built. And
Yes.
after a while, my body was like, "Oh no, you're my thug gear was disconnected. Like, there was no throwing it into a thug and just getting through anymore." And my medical team told me one day, "You just might fall off the cliff." Like, meaning you're doing all right and you're thinking you're doing fine and you can make it through this shoot and you can make it through this thing, and then you don't recover. And that's what happened. And
Mm,
to, even though it was, I guess it was somewhere in the vicinity of a near death experience, because I did feel this sense of, I prayed, of course, but I felt this overwhelming expansion of love for my daughter. Like,
mhm.
all thoughts left my head. It was like my mind was like a balloon, and it was just expanding with love for Lenny, where I didn't have any other thoughts.
Mm.
Like, I just felt that. And that lasted about 5 minutes on the plane. Like, just
Mm.
so I guess it was a way of almost prepare. I think my body and my mind was preparing to not make it. And that
Mm.
this was the I was going to be in love mode on my journey to the other side. And and now I'm in another journey towards wellness.
Mhm.
I was, not long ago, I was in a journey towards transition, and now I'm in a journey towards transformation.
Mhm.
And I just really had to practice acceptance the best I could, because I didn't want to get into despair for myself or, my family. But
And
it's weird. Yeah.
how is Eleni handling all of this?
I mean, she has been just, well, she's such an adult, in a way, but she's
Yes.
been my partner. She's my medical proxy. She's helping, like we moved upstate together. We're on a 4-acre piece of property. I'm in an apartment in the house that she's living in with, like, we circled the wagons. We were like, it's family and community. That's what's important. Like, she was ready to leave the city anyway. COVID changed a lot of how people thought about, even young people, how they thought about the city and how they think about living and what's important and who's important. And so we were thinking about, I was in, we were thinking about moving out of the city anyway, but this just sped everything up and I'm just in a pool of gratitude every day, even the hard days. I don't think about my breathing.
You know what, Michaela? I remember when you talk about community, we'll see if you remember this because so many things have happened, but there was a time some years ago that I interviewed you about being a mom and your relationship with Eleni, and you talked about the community that you built in Brooklyn and how
Yeah.
there were all kinds of families with children and you worked together. So, and you made it clear you weren't a single mom, you were co-parenting. That was
That's right.
clear.
I was an
And
unmarried mom. Yeah.
as an unmarried mom, and how in this community that you built, everybody was cared for. And it's coming to mind because it sounds like what Eleni lived that was her life. And now she's recreating it in a
Yes.
way now.
Yes. That's exactly, what's happening. It's like the next passing the torch in a different way. I did it kind of in an urban environment. And now it's semi-country. It's beautiful and it's peaceful and there's land and there's trees, all of the things that are better for our spirits. Um, yeah, it's a beautiful evolution of watching our daughters
That's beautiful.
evolve. Yeah.
Hey guys, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We are talking with my friend Michaela Angela Davis about her journey, about her new book, Tenderheaded, and just the journey of life and how we navigate it and how she's navigating it. And we are so fortunate that she is being so revealing. So I thank you for that, Michaela. People, especially today,
Well, it
people
is something I mean, just to say this, Harriet, it is something best first shared with a friend, and like a friend for a long time. I wouldn't do this with, some other podcast or whatever. Like, you're my friend. And so it also, when you hear it for the first time out of your mouth, like, it's important to whom you're giving it to and how
yes.
they are going to hold it. So I just want to thank you for giving me space to talk about it because it's such a trip. It is so weird.
And it's, when it, not only do I think of you in this way, but a lot of people think of you as warrior woman, as,
Yeah.
you've been on the path for a long
Yes.
time. As I read, you call yourself an image activist, and you have been on the forefront of challenging how we see ourselves, how we define ourselves. And one aspect of that identity that now, simply because of what's happened to you, is going to be another dimension.
Yes.
The body, health, like health is this thing that we pay closer attention to
Yes.
the more mature we get, right? Or
Right.
or even if you're young or your child is young and has an experience, having an experience like this is incredible. So another thing I want to ask you about is obviously the 26-year-old man whose lungs you have are because he is no longer on the planet.
That's right.
Um, Spiritually, how did you deal with that?
Yeah. I'm still dealing with it. I'm in deep. deep gratitude. Um, and I think about his family. And do you watch The Pit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you remember that episode where there was a young man who took fentanyl or a pill with fentanyl and he died the first time, and
Yeah.
then they had to tell the parent, and
Yes,
they asked, did he want to donate his lung?
I remember.
Harriet, I was bawling
I bet.
because I'm like, someone had to have that conversation with this young man's family or
Right.
somebody.
Right.
He was 26 years old. And so I think about it, and the painter Amy Sherrod has
Mhm.
someone's heart, and she
Yeah.
knows who her donor is, and or she knows the family. I'm sorry, and who the donor was. So you're allowed to reach out to your donor's family after. So I'm now at the place where I can. So you work through the hospital, they will reach out to the family, and if the family wants you to be in contact with them, you will. And I'm going to do that
Wow.
to see if, because also I think it's probably not just me. If he's a donor, there are other organs that there are probably 3 or 4 other people alive because of him. So
And the
it's
fact that
spiritually
as a young
huge.
man, he chose to be an organ donor. It's not
That's right.
a knee jerk. You have to make the choice.
Yeah, and some religions don't, you know, approve. So, but yeah, when you think about, like I said, God and modern medicine are awesome. Like each one, and because there were so many divine interventions in this process that I have no doubt that there is a divine loving force that has me and all of us covered. We tap into it. And I don't know what's waiting for me on the other side of this, as a human, as a creative person, as a mother, like this time to rest. Because
Mm.
that's all I can do, really, is, I mean, I'm slowly entering society again, but I had to really just sit it down after like you said, after
And
you
that
lost your eyes.
alone, Michaela, resting. So we learn the value of rest, especially through spiritual practice.
Yes.
But we don't necessarily do that one as much as we might meditate or something else, you know?
I mean, and to be, if I'm being honest with you, because I know you're like or a long person that practices meditation. I meditated mostly so I could work better. I mean, honestly, I mean, not only to have like this, conscious contact, but like I knew that if I meditated, I could write better.
Yep.
Or if I meditated, I could, be a more patient mother. It,
Mhm.
it was still connected to some action that I
Yes.
was supposed to perform. And now it's different. It doesn't have that same uh, motive.
It's inward,
Yeah, correct.
which is what it's supposed to be. That's what we learn.
I know.
But I think I'm glad you're saying this because look, so many people make the effort to meditate. It is often not an easy thing to do and allow the thoughts to dissipate, but the effort is important. But you hit it. People who are so goal driven and
Yeah.
you know and in the case of you and myself, it's the goal of offering the gifts, of offering the creativity. It's not necessary. Some other people have the goal of, how much money can I make, whatever your goal is. But
Yeah.
in this creative space, people believe that they should be working all the time.
I know.
And so
I
what
know.
you're saying, like what we are taught and what your body is telling you now is you must rest. You must rejuvenate.
You must.
You must. There's no other option. You have to do it. And that's
Yeah, it took all my options off the table because I would look for a loophole.
right. And so surrender, what is surrender? What has it felt
That's
like for you?
and that's what it is. And at risk of sounding cliche, it is so liberating. To surrender is liberating and it's revolutionary. And it seems like it's the antithesis of liberation. But I'm starting to feel a different sense of freedom. And I've
Mm.
been a freedom fighter. If I could, have you know, one thing on my epitaph, it's like freedom fighter. And I wanted freedom for Black women and freedom for all people. And surrender is like I can touch a kind of freedom that I had not known before.
Mm. That's
I'm not
beautiful.
living by my calendar. I'm not living by my watch, or I have one or two appointments in 1 or 2 days. For right now, that's extraordinary. And, once I became a writer, that started to happen too, that sense of freedom. And literally, you have to sit down to do your work, right? And so I've been on this sort of liberation of from that gangster life, that hustle life, for a few years.
Yeah. So pivoting to your book, uh, part of what is unique about you, and you put it out there, straight out there in the book, is that how you look
Hmm.
has often been challenged in terms of your identity, especially as it relates to your ethnicity.
Mhm.
And I remember one of the things that Susan Taylor taught us at Essence, which was very important for me to hear, was most places, most publications, and this is back when we had a lot of printed
Yeah,
publications, but
publication.
publications, most publications, if they did show Black people at all, they were fair skinned. But usually they didn't even show any of us.
Mhm.
Even Black publications typically only showed fair skinned people. And Susan taught us we have to show the rainbow.
Right.
We need to include everyone. And she erred on for us to err on the side of browner people because nobody else showed
Yes.
them.
Yes.
And then this one of the things that you talk about that is so incredibly powerful is what happens for all the people who are fair skinned. And you have lots of different beautiful names for people who are lighter skinned in your book that are really amazing. And what happens to them? How do you feel if within the community you're other?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because, and you really understand this because we both were, Essence and tailor made in terms of our looking at, um, and at how Black women are looked at. And I felt that it really was his mandate for us to center the more deeper tone and darker skinned women because they were so marginalized. And also, and this is quite true, it's like if I saw a commercial with a dark skinned Black woman in it, I would feel included in her representation. Not necessarily if I was in one, would she feel included? If you know what I mean? Like it is
Right.
something psychological. Like you go, oh, that's clearly, a Black person
Right.
in that space. And so that had been so. Um, that was my training, you know. And so what's most interesting about doing the memoir, and I say this to say that I didn't agree to do this unless I was going to tell the truth, like
Yes.
the truth. And so the truth was the biggest grapple with the color caste system and being light skinned and discovering that light skinned and dark skinned and medium skinned is such insufficient language for our very, very complex spectrum. So that's why I kind of really worked on being specific about people's skin tones. And most of it was about food, but Someone looked like the color of like peaches and dumplings, like that kind of
That's
stuff.
true.
But
That there's a lot of food
it was
language
so
in there.
much food. Um, because I was writing it in Sumter, South Carolina, where I'm from. But the biggest grapple was with me, inside of me confronting me, meaning because so much of my career I had been in Black spaces and in Black women's spaces, the people that really challenged me, I didn't really hear it. I knew they did. And it was kind of mundane. Like I took that for granted. But because I was so identified and so authentically working in the space with Black people and Black women, I didn't get that challenge from the outside. It was the inside. And it
Yeah.
was me needing to interrogate how I saw myself. And that's why that the whole moment with Rachel, with Rachel Dolezal was so confronting because I was like, this is my actual nightmare.
And
And
you
at
know
some
what? You
point,
describe it. You describe it in the book. And for anyone who doesn't remember who she is, that's the white woman who posed as Black, went to Howard University, benefited from Black culture. And then, I mean, she was lying, but also she then turned on the culture that had supported her.
yes, she sued Howard. And she was, and there were so many things. And the thing is, when that story broke, I didn't feel that I was allowed to be really angry in public
Mm,
about it because I was
mm,
on CNN at the time.
right.
And and a lot through my childhood, and young adult life, I didn't feel like I was allowed to be angry at all, really. Like just yeah, and this made me so angry. And that's why I started there. Like I started the book like swinging because
Yep.
I also felt like I didn't give myself or I wasn't given the space to swing. And then I also stood in the gap of that angry Black woman trope. Because first of all, they don't see me that way. When I go into CNN, they don't see a full Black woman. So in a way, I could have been more angry because I don't scare them, right?
I don't know
And
about when you don't scare them, my sister. I'm not sure
you
about
know, I had to really, I really had to like, I really had a lot of strategy around how I responded. So I had enough feelings for the people, but not so much that I would be kicked off the ship because you
sure.
can be
Yeah, no,
removed.
you got it. Wait, let me just jump in and let folks know this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We are talking with Michaela Angela Davis, the author of her memoir called Tenderheaded. And we're going in talking about culture, race, skin tone, and what it all means. So yeah, I mean, being on the biggest
Yeah,
cable news channel at the time
at the time.
um,
Yeah,
meant
yeah.
you had to have we always have to have strategy.
We always have to have strategy. Like the blonde afro was a strategy. All of this so we can have a voice and be at the table. And her story was the one where I was like, oh, I might have to break this table. But I didn't because right the day that I was supposed to talk about her, the massacre in Charleston happened. And I'm
Right,
like, oh, right, we're here to talk about Black people being like real Black people being persecuted.
right.
So it kind of, I held it in what I was, feeling and was able to put it on the page.
So I want to share with you, as you know this, because when we were at the event at Susan's house, I brought this up. But in reading your book and learning more about your story, it definitely stirred up things in me about my family. And I asked Fallon to pull up some pictures I want to show you. Um, a picture of me and my grandmother and my mother's brother. Fallon, if you would pull those up for people who cannot see because you're listening, my mother's mother, Carrie Freeland, is a picture of us right here. She lived to be 101. She was a white-skinned Black woman. She called herself colored. She was born in 1889, so they were colored back then.
Yep.
Um, there's no one who thought that she was Black because there's no identifiable feature of her that is Black. And then let's show Uncle Wendell, who is my mother's brother. He too, there is no identifiable. This is my mother's brother. You know,
They look like family. Well, when I met your mother, I was like, oh, she looks like family. But your grandmother looks like my grandmother.
of course, and that's how our families are. And there's my mother.
Yes.
And so my mother was the one who had a tiny little blush of color, and she would tell us these stories. So here's a story that I think you appreciate, Michaela. When my mother's the younger of the two children. When they were young, and this is my mother was 95 when she passed, a little less than a year ago. So it was years ago.
Right.
They were in a store when my grandmother needed to buy food. She was a white woman. She passed so she could go buy her food. Her son looked white too. So they were in the store. My mother's running around. She's like 4 years old. He runs up to the counter and says, "Mama, Mama." And she has a blush of color in her skin. And the people look at her and go, "Oh no, we can't sell you this." And they take it out of my grandmother's hands and tell her to get out of the store. You have stories like this in your book.
Yes.
And it the so and my uncle, talk about strategy, he's a lawyer. He would pass in order to teach white lawyers a lesson, like, "Oh, you're gonna just talk about black people like this, and then I'm gonna tell you I'm black at the end of this conversation to wake you up." It was an awakening
Yes.
strategy that he
Yes.
used, but also among black people, he had
Yes.
to tell everybody. No one knew that these people were black. My
Yeah.
mother's mother, my mother's brother, and depending upon who my mother was around, her. And this is what you are
Yeah.
describing, and it happens in so many black families. It's
So
not
many families.
so
Yes.
many families.
Yeah. And I really wanted to. I mean, not to say that we're the first to talk about it, but I feel like we're ready to talk about it now in a way that we weren't maybe, you know, 10 years ago, or even because the struggle and the movement for Black Lives was so it was so on our skin, for lack of better words. But this is, I think we are ready to be more nuanced in how we talk about how the caste system works, how these strategies work, how they play out in our families, how they play. It's a uniquely American story. I have my grandfather, and I think I mentioned this in the book, was a different race in three different censuses. He was Negro, he was colored, he was
Yeah,
mulatto, and he was white. He was a hundred
right,
percent
that's
white.
the funny part.
I know, and he passed for white to marry my
He
colored
passed for
great
black.
grandmother.
He passed for black.
Yeah, I'm sorry. He passed for black, a white man in Jim Crow South, right? Passed for black so he can marry my clearly black, great grandmother. So that's I remember hearing that story years ago, and I thought, oh, that's one I hadn't heard. I hadn't heard of people passing for black to marry, because the marriage anti-miscegenation laws were on the books in South Carolina until 1998. My
So,
cousins in South Carolina went to segregated schools. They're my age.
wow.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that, like, they're going to schools. We're just a couple hundred miles up the road, and they're going to segregated. So it's not even that far. That these
Yeah, but
experiences
I'm
are
I'm
are
so
happening.
glad that you are telling these stories raw and real, and I think it's very helpful that they are poetically written because, poetry helps people to
Yes.
ingest things that are hard to take in.
And thank you for commenting on the writing, because I wanted the writing to be. I worked hard at it because I think Black women deserve the best. So I really wanted it to be the best crafted book, not just the stories, but the writing. Like I remember reading a opening, or a new forward for The Bluest Eye that
Mhm.
um,
Toni Morrison.
Morrison wrote, and she said kind of essentially that, like, my only regret is the language falls short of who these women I want to bring to life. And I'm like, if Morrison thinks her language is falling short, then I'm like on the floor somewhere. But I want, but that was the same goal. Like we deserve just greatness, and not to say that I like that it's great, but I was going for really good writing, more than, not more than, but equal to the storytelling.
Well, and I also appreciate, like, in let's go to music, because music is so important in your life
Yes.
and in your career. Some music, and I'll say some rap music in particular, is just raw, and they put it all out, like, you take your panties off and there you are. And
Yeah.
some of it is lyrical and leaves something to the imagination. And
And the
in
craft is,
and in your storytelling, that's what I feel has occurred. You take us into a story and then leave us to our imagination for a number of things, including like the John Singleton story. We don't
right.
have to know everything, and you all have to read the book to know what we're talking about. But but
I
I
know, and there are a number of people asked me about Prince, and I was like, well, only
well,
my friends will know the answer, but yeah.
but I like that it's not just take your panties off. That it's lyrical, it's imaginative. You take us, and I don't even mean just the sexual stuff. I mean anything. It's just
Mhm.
you take us into an experience, and then you don't have to say every single thing that happened. You give us the flavor of the experience, which I think is helpful, especially when the topics are so challenging.
Yeah.
That we don't have to go into the back room, into every little nook and cranny to understand, to get a sense of. And so one of the things I wanted to share with you, Michaela, which is interesting, just about image and internationally about image, and where,
Mhm.
like you were just saying, that there were people your age who went to segregated schools. So when my mother was ill, just last year, there were different caretakers who were coming to the place where she was staying. So we had people with her during all of her waking hours. And one of the people was from Tanzania, beautiful woman. And so she says she got to my mother's room before the family was there. She'd been hired, recommended. She came, and she said, "Oh, okay." So she thought my mother was a white woman. And then Stephanie, my younger sister, comes, and she's brown, and she's, "Oh, that's your daughter? Oh, was huh?" And then I came, and then she said, "Wait a minute," but then she talked to us, and she said, "But I'm so confused right now." And she was confused, she said, because, well, my mother looked a particular way, we looked different ways, but she said, "But you don't sound Black. You don't act like Black people. I don't believe that you're Black." She said, "I live in a neighborhood here in Baltimore, and I'm around Black people, and you're not like them." And this began a conversation. First, we got mad, and then we realized we have to educate. Black people are not monolithic. We're every kind of way.
Yes.
And but the stereotypes are so powerful
They're
globally.
so pervasive. And I mean, you touched on something that's probably a whole nother segment for Dream Leapers, but the African versus African American and the tropes that are told about us to our own people is
Yes.
just astounding.
I mean, we're taught
And
to hate each
storytelling
other.
is the way out. I know, and to look down on, African Americans are lazy, like it's just, and Africans are backwards, like the tropes that we have given each other to be distracted, because if we had some if we united, we could checkmate, white
Easily.
supremacy.
I have in recent years done more diving into the world of Marcus Garvey.
Uh-huh.
And that man was so powerful. He understood
Yeah,
what
it did.
now people are talking about, the global majority. If we look at the globe and people of color,
That's
people of
right.
African descent, we are. the global majority. And he
That's
was
right.
saying, look, guys, don't marginalize yourselves. Here's who we are. If we
That's
lock
right.
arms, then what can happen? Anything can happen.
I know. I mean, like the poet Sekou Sundiata used to say, "People of whiteness," because he's like they're the minority instead of people of color. He's like people of whiteness, and it makes so much sense. And we really have to start by telling our stories. And there's so many, there's multitudes. Um, Also, just for your listeners, Harriet has a little cameo in the memoir. Um, you had There was a whole setup. I even there. I'll send this to you. It got cut out, but my description of you when I first met you was something I wrote about. So I'll send it to you.
I'd love
It
to
didn't make it
see.
to the final because I remember questioning my editor. I'm referring to Harriet, but we haven't introduced her before.
I noticed that.
Yeah, and he's like, you didn't. Us. He's like, no one else will notice. I bet you, I'm like, and in my mind, I said, I bet you Harriet's gonna notice.
I saw my name, my first name. I'm like, who's gonna know who I am? But
Yeah, we had a whole moment about that. I'm like, I already set her up because you hired me, like the whole thing.
but
So
but
much
that
editing.
moment in the book was very powerful because one of the things that we got
Yes.
to do, and well, let me also let folks know because we only have 5 minutes left. This is Dream Leapers. I am so honored to be talking with my friend Michaela Angela Davis, a survivor. And because of your survival, we don't even know what great other things are going to come. But just going back to our early days, and
Hmm.
I can't speak highly enough about what I learned, and I know you too, at the feet of Susan Taylor. One of the things that we got to do, because that period was like the golden age of Essence, and we were working with Maya Angelou.
Hmm.
And it was a beautiful, I mean, just to be in the company of this great being and to honor her, to celebrate her. Dwight Carter was the photographer. I just saw him the other day. And, people who understood
Roxana Floyd, Jamaica,
Roxana Floyd, oh,
rest in
we
peace.
we were able to celebrate and honor so many of our greats.
Yes,
That's important.
yes. And that's why I wrote so many of them in the book because I wanted the memoir to also, I wanted Tenderheaded to be a record of who we are, what we did, how we were part of the publishing industry. Even though we weren't, Conde, we were there and we made work and we recorded our own culture and what, at Essence, at Vibe, at Honey. But Essence has that had that longevity, and we were there, like you just said, at the peak. My first job was Anita Hill.
That was
Like what?
incredible. Incredible. And so in these couple of
So
minutes that we have left, Michaela, I want to address what's happening in our world right now because this anti-DEI movement, when you just mentioned like the global minority is white people, but they have for the entire time convinced people that they should be in charge. And
yeah,
this anti-DEI is that. It's, you're like reverse discrimination. Are you kidding me? Still, in most businesses, in most industries, the majority of people in leadership are white men. Nobody's taking
sure,
that away from them.
yeah,
But what had the impact of anti DEI when Trump said in the State of the Union, we killed DEI? That's a huge thing that has happened. What
yeah.
what do you see as an image activist, as you being you? What do you feel your responsibility may be in reversing this? What can we do to make sure people don't get it twisted, that we
Yeah.
deserve and belong wherever we should be?
You know, and that death to DEI hit Black women the hardest and the most. When we looked at the job losses right after, especially to the federal government, like over 300,000 jobs
Yes.
were lost to Black women.
Yes.
And so there's a part of, and we are no strangers to painful political times throughout history. We are probably the most prepared for a moment like this because we're always hit. And I think I'm very encouraged by some of the movements that have been in place, but then have been bolstered from this, from like Win with Black Women. I tune in to their calls every couple of weeks just so I can keep keep my eyes open and look to the future because that's really, I mean, it's built into your name, but also to the name of the show, but to our ancestors. They were doing things for us.
Yes.
They were making plans for their children and their children's children. And we're being asked to do relatively the same. I mean, we've gotten to be so, the literal me movement, not just me too, but like me and my life. But I think in moments like this, we are called to look beyond ourselves and start to really think about what is this going to be for our daughters and our daughters' daughters and the rest of humanity. Because I think when Black women are liberated, we liberate others. It's at a
Absolutely.
speed that's different than other people. Like I somehow built to think about community organically. It's not something someone has to remind us to do.
That's right.
So I think our responsibility is to do this, Harry, is to tell the story, promote the stories, find new stories, and keep telling our stories, and keep shouting and keep finding each other, and having community and being together in small spaces, like getting together for real, at little
Yeah.
gatherings, at Susan's house, at your, birthday, whatever. Like we need to remind ourselves of our power and our beauty.
And bring the love together and go out and share it with everybody who needs that dose of greatness.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend.
It's going to be a tricky time, but we're built for this.
We are built for this.
Yes.
Congratulations on your book.
Thank
Blessings
you.
for your recovery. Remember
Thank
to
you.
rest.
Girl, I don't have a choice. I told you my thug gear is gone.
Well, and so
I
take
got a flow
your time.
gear now. It's like I can throw it into flow.
There you go. It's
Yes.
so good to see you.
I love you,
Congratulations.
dear friends.
I love you too. Continued blessings. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this very powerful conversation with Michaela Angela Davis, author of Tenderheaded, as much as I did. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.